The following program contains adult language, poor taste in jokes, racial slurs, political slurs, slants, and all sorts of things that if you are sensitive and have a delicate constitution, you should probably go watch Teletubbies. You were warned.
So you're doing the little twist there. You already spoke about that.
Right. Now, one thing you do want to make sure of.
Yep.
The solder from your tight side. Nope, that didn't work. Tight side in. Give yourself some room.
Yeah. Definitely do a little forward thinking on that. Don't fight against yourself. It just makes things harder in the long run.
Yes. And every flight controller is different. Like Omnibus F3, I have memorized. I mean, I can literally, you guys can text me, I'll be like, do this, this, and this. DYS F4, not as much. You know, I've only got a couple of them in.
Now, something I like to do, and I noticed you didn't do here, and I know because you have the experience you do, but just speaking from a newer standpoint, I always dry fit mine, just to make sure I have everything measured out. Again, going back to, I'm using a ruler to measure my wires versus you that's cutting them. But, you know, I always like to dry fit mine, make sure I have everything where I want it. You know, measure twice, cut once.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with that. And I did not tin these before we ate. And I'm sitting here like, man, you know, and I got a reference, Joshua. I can't get over, he did this little video that said, the title of the video is Your Solder Sucks. And he interviewed this guy who owns a solder factory or some shit. And I'm like, okay. Now, a lot of you don't understand what I do for a living, and you don't need to. But I deal a lot in thermodynamics and robotic welding. That's basically what I do. I am the robotic welding king of the world. So, and he had made a reference to soldering was TIG welding or some shit. I'm like, oh my god, dude. Okay, anyway, I can let that go. But one of the things Josh had mentioned, and honestly, guys, and y'all have heard me say this, I bust on him in fun. He's a smart kid, you know, for an RF guy. He's got some good content. I think his ego's a little over the top. That's a shitty one. But he said something about, oh, you know, when you have a solder joint that won't solder and you've got all these issues. And I was like, really? How fucking bad are you if you've got an oxidized solder joint? I've never done that in my life, right? Whatever, you know, I like bagging on Josh. I do. It's just fun. He puts himself out there. He wears a fucking dress. I don't watch his channel. I really don't. And I used to, because I thought, well, this cat, you know, he's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then he got this ego about him where it was just like, really? It's like, you know, you're an RF guy, so you can't really be egotistical about your job. And you spend the rest of your time not getting laid by your wife. You spend the rest of your time figuring out toys, which I do too. I love it. It's what I do. I love quadcopters. Don't get me wrong. But when push comes to shove, if it's a quadcopter or my old lady's hot ass, bam, hot ass. So I like doing this because it's fun, and I like to meet new people that I meet on the channel, and, you know, Blackhawk and I have a ball doing it because it's fun. He has literally seen me smash headfirst into the cement with Poor Boy. And he and I broke Poor Boy in half, you know, because it's fucking fun. It's a stress reliever. And that's what you've got to look at. It's not this, oh, serious. And that is why, you know, I have a lot of guys ask me, how do you do your recordings? And it's really funny because I'm a guitar player by trade, actually. I'm a robotic engineer, but guitar was always my thing.
And I have a full recording studio, 256 channel DAWs, and all this other stuff. And I use a fucking cell phone to record my audio. And I don't think, Josh is not, no offense, brother. I'm trying not to be vain, but I am. Everybody's vain. I try not to be judgmental, but you're fucking ugly. And I'm not beautiful either, and either is Blackhawk. He looks like a fucking Brillo pad.
Hell yes.
And but we got smoking hot. We got good-looking girls and whatever. So we're thankful for that. That's why we're getting married. It's like, oh, this chick doesn't know any better, so we're gonna do this.
Hell yeah.
But it's like, dude, seriously, I don't think my viewers, the few that I have, and I think they're pretty loyal guys. I think they're a lot like me. They're tattooed madmen, and it's like, they don't want to see my face. I'd rather have them see my hands. Because like Bardwell, has his little mic with his, what we call in the audio industry, a puff guard in front of his mic, and he's got...
Is that what that big like loofah looking thing is on there?
And in recording...
take a shower.
And when you record, which I've done a lot of recording, I've recorded 3 or 4 CDs, music CDs of my own. You use a puff guard because it keeps the P's and the S's silent. But he's got the gold sputtered mic, and he's got that big old melon of his, and it's like, what? Nobody wants to see your face, and that's why I don't do it. Y'all have seen me. If you look at my YouTube picture, it's me and my smoking hot wife, and that's what I look like. I used to look a lot better, but then I got married and I thought, fuck, I don't need to keep that up. Okay.
Hey, you don't even have your weightlifting days on there, do you?
No. I used to be like 5% body fat and worked out 9 times a week, and you hear me say nothing but a peanut and all that other stuff, and those are actually terms from weightlifters, and I was a big weightlifting guy, and my wife won't let me go to the gym anymore. So anyway, she's hot and I'm not, so it works out. So anyway, there we go. ESCs are soldered in. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do our signals. And now here's the trick. When you get the DYS F4, you get like this 16 miles of fucking ESC wire. What we're going to do, you do not need the negative wire like Blackhawk and I discussed. So here's how I do this. I take one end, I take my solder, I solder one end. And he's talking about his little OCD ways of cut to fit. And I do that on this bit. So what I'll do is I'll say, okay, we'll kind of trace this over, and it needs to go to there, bam, and I'll cut that. And then I'll strip it again. Nothing on a quadcopter, unless it's your battery wires, you do not need a wire stripper. You need a fucking thumbnail. And if your thumbnail is not long enough to strip a wire, you're gay. I'm sorry. Don't cut your shit that thin. So we're going to trim that one down. Bam. Cut to fit, just like Blackhawk says. Good math. Okay?
Now that's a great little bit of information with the thumbnail. That's something when I first started getting into the hobby, I was looking at everything that I needed, and I used to do a little bit of computer electronic stuff when I was in school and everything, but getting back into it, I'm like, okay, I need a solder puller, I need wick, I need, this, that, and the other, and I'm thinking, all right, I need wire strippers, and I met you. I've never bought a pair of wires.
All you need is Sailor Jerry's and a thumbnail.
And a thumbnail.
Now, hang on a tick. Blackhawk's going to talk to you. I'm going to look for something real quick.
All right. Well, I'm not sure what you're looking for, but in the mess that you have, it could be a month. So, I guess I try and, get a little bit of good content here. So, just kind of talking about the Hellbender frame here. This is a really solid frame. As Jay had mentioned, this is RMRC. This is made here in Ohio. There's a limited lifetime warranty on it. This was actually the first frame that I built when I first got into it and met Jay. He sent me over a list of a bunch of different frames, parts, things he recommended I try out. Just kind of some things to choose from. And ultimately ended up going with the Hellbender. And I tell you, it has been my turn to as far as quads go. If ever I have an issue with anything else, I know I can put it in the air and it's going to fly.
Absolutely.
So.
And it's an American made, and that's what we're doing, the military build here. These are wire strippers. These are real wire strippers, not that HVAC fag stuff.
Yeah, that's what your toolbox thinks about that.
Hey, I got tools for tools. These are, you know, cut and grab. Bam! Look at that. That's a beautiful thing. So if you were to do this, if you've never seen these before, and I realize this build video is more bullshit and fun than it is useful, but you're having fun, so fucking shut up. So look, bam. Oh, look, it's even too small for that. Oh well. Anyway, you get the idea. You don't need that shit. If you're using good silicon wire, that's all you need. Okay? Just take your thumbnail, pull it off, bam, you're done. We got one more to do. I like putting Blackhawk on the spot because you hear how he went into that, like, oh God, fuck me, what do I talk about? I'll talk about the Hellbender because Jason hasn't talked about that nearly enough, you know.
No, you gotta shed a little bit of light on, I mean, that quality looking bird there.
Bullshit. It all breaks. Okay, so.
Especially when you're you.
Right, especially when you're me. All right. That's how I do. Now,
I don't know, the 50 mile an hour into the halogen light or the...
Oh, that was sweet.
That was awesome, and it's...
Was that mine or yours?
That was my Hellbender. You were fine.
We go to this park that's near our houses, and I'm basically tinning the other side of the signal wire. Okay? We go to this park that's by our house, and he's like, oh, I want you to fly my bird. I want you to fly my bird. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to fuck up your bird. And he's like, no, fly it, fly it, fly it. Okay. And so... I take his Hellbender, which is a really nice bird, and I take it up in the air, full throttle. And if you guys ever watch my videos, that's how I take off, right? I arm, and I go full throttle up, and then I go straight down, and I go out. And I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't drinking. See, that was the problem. See, kids, always drink. But anyway, I go straight, we're at all these baseball fields, and I go straight up into this halogen fucking lamp, like full throttle. And you hear this bong, you know, this crash. It was hysterical. It was awesome. I wish we had that on DVR.
I really do too. None of the good ones are ever on DVR.
Right. So now what we're doing is we're soldering the signal wires to, that one's going to S2. Now, always pre-tin your wires, and hopefully my big fat head ain't in the way. Always pre-tin your wires, pre-tin your board, and just touch them. That's all you need to do. Bam, look at that. And I have never in my life, and I've built a lot of quads, and more importantly, trashed a lot of quads, and never had a wire come loose in the air. Bam. Our ESCs are technically done. Now what we're going to do, we're going to take our lead and we're going to put it on. But we're going to do it old school. We're using a soldering gun. Fuck this little, you know, weenie Metro shit. We're using a gun. Old school Radio Shack 100 watt. Radio Shack is out of business, which just fucking saddens me. So what we're going to do...
Now, what is the point with using the gun versus the iron there?
The iron, most irons are like 50 watt, 60 watt, things like that. Whereas if you guys need to do heavy gauge wire, okay, now watch how I do this. You've seen this in my other videos. I literally take my thumb, put it on the top of the silicone wire, roll it on the razor blade, bam, pull it off. That's all you do. Bada bang. Look at that. Easier than instant pudding. Okay? The gun is going to transfer a shit ton more heat than a soldering iron. Now, I can use an iron just as easily. You just have to sit on it with more time. Okay? Guns clean the same way. Do I recommend you get a gun for a quad build? Absolutely not. You do not need it. But since I've got it, hang it. We're going to do it. So, same way I always do things. We're going to tin. Bam. Look at that.
Beautiful.
Woo! Any better than that, man. You'd be dating that shit.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So where were you born?
I was born in Florida.
Florida, that's right. He's an orange boy. Yeah. Fucking
Come right on the coast, Daytona.
nice.
Oh yeah.
Need a drink. Sorry. This is a long video, but it's not like Bardwell long. This is fun long. Oh shit! Look at that. Do you guys see this shit? I put this in here like a week ago. Damn, I forgot all about that.
Nice.
Anyway, okay. Anyway, he's from Florida.
And you are?
I am technically from Chicago. But I grew up mostly in Indiana, northern Indiana, where our brother Zebruh FPV is from.
And that's his hometown there, right?
Elkhart, which is about
15 miles north of where I'm from. All right, so if we look at this, we've got battery positive and ground. So hopefully you can see that. So we're just going to, what I usually do with this is I heat through the wire first. The reason I do that is if I melt through the wire then to the board, I know I've got nice conductivity and I have not burnt the pad off the board. If I try to solder onto the board pad first and then melt through the wire, your chances of burning the pad off the board are much greater. Hang on, smoking hot wife pause here. Oh, she's getting dog food, but she looks really good doing it. Okay, so there's our ground, there's our positive. Now, if you see how close those are, this is why I can formal coat things. Ian's laughing.
I'm trying not to die.
My wife is like turned red 3 shades over. You know, it's really fucking funny. So there we go. That is why I can formal coat things. Any little, and Ian had said something, Blackhawk had said something earlier about if you have one little strand of wire crossing over, it'll short out and fuck things up. So that is very true. But if you can formal coat that, it definitely helps. So what's next on the agenda? We've got all of our ESCs wired up. We've got our battery, our power lead plugged in. What would you do?
What I would do next would be probably go with our RX, our radio receiver, or our radio transmitter receiver combo.
Receiver's a good idea. But here's what I do.
Oh, you're
Now,
doing a rectal.
Yes, we are going to do a prostate check. Now, you've heard me talk about this in my soldering video and whatever else. Now, the reason I do a prostate check this early on, you're thinking, what the fuck, dude? All you've got is your ESCs, your signal wires, and this will not detect signal wire issues, and your battery lead. Why do it? Here's why. If you build the entire quad, then do a prostate check, and you do get a direct short, meaning it sounds like this. Where is it?
Absolutely.
Where is the short? If I do it now and I get the short, I know where it's at. It's in one of 4 fucking places. So, you do not need to go to the plug end. You can just go right to the here. Bam! Nothing but a peanut. Perfect. No, if you get that, that's bad math. If you get this, that's good. No beep. Okay. The reason you want to do it in stages, and I must confess, I don't always do that, but it helps you in your troubleshooting. Because if you build an entire quad and you get the direct short, where is it? Is it in the receiver? Is it in the VTX? Is it in the camera? Is it in the flight controller? Is it in the ESCs? Bam. I know for a fact, if I get it right now, it's either in the flight controller, this cable, or those 4 ESCs.
Absolutely. That makes wonderful sense.
Yes, and usually I forget to do that. But that's okay. So, he's saying we need to do the receiver next. Now, I agree with that to a point. I am going to use, this is a temporary install. This is one of my little receivers, which is a radio link, which both he and I use. My buddy Zebruh FPV uses a Tyrannus, which I do not use. So he's on his own for his own receiver. So when he gets this thing, when he gets home from Sandland, and his old lady's like, here's this cool box that this great guy built this quad for you for, he's gonna have to put his own receiver because, you know, that's just how life is. But we're gonna put one of mine in so we can do the tests and make sure this birdie flies. So let me get this nasty shit off. Okay.
Now you still got your zip tie on there from your little
Yeah, this is
deal.
This is a used one, obviously. That's okay. Well, give me a cutter.
Yep.
And we're going to use nice new connections. And again, the thumbnail. Now, this is an S-bus connection. That's all I use. I do not use PPM, PWM, iBus, or anything else. I use S-bus, but that's just me.
Is there a reason that you do so? Is there something in particular that you found with S-bus that would warrant that use versus anything else.
Yes, the fact that I have 30 fucking quads and use Radio Link. That's the primary reason.
That
But
has a lot to do with it.
that is very good. Oh, I lost my signal wire. Ain't that sad? That's okay. We can fix that shit real quick. The reason why here, PWM stands for what?
Pulse width modulation.
Very good.
Hey, we use it in HVAC
My
too.
my little young Jedi Padawan learner here. Absolutely.
I have not gotten to carrying you around while exercising. That is to come, Yoda.
See, yeah. We're gonna have that discussion in a minute.
But yes, pulse width modulation. And back in the day, when I was a kid, back in 1988, and I was
When I was born.
Yep, when I was in 8th grade. Fuck you. When I was in 8th grade, I was building radio control cars, Kyosho Ultima, bam, very cool, and gas-powered radio control hydroplane boats, because I was raised on a lake. And we used PWM. That's all they had. Pulse width modulation, which is analog signal. Then they came out with PPM, which was a little bit better. It's kind of like, yeah, she's not fat, but she's a little thick. Yeah. And then they came out with S-Bus and all this other stuff. And I-Bus is basically the fly sky version of S-Bus, if I remember right. Don't quote me on that. But S-Bus is just everything that I use. So that's what we're going to do. So go ahead. You were going to say something?
No, absolutely. I was just curious as far as the iBus. I know we used it with the two that we did side by side. And
Yep.
it seemed to work very similarly to the S-Bus as far as setup, operation, all those types of things are concerned.
Right. I just think it's the best protocol in the world,
Absolutely.
but that's just me. And, you know, I wanted to get on the Tyrannus bus. I really did. And I just have so many fucking birds, and it would cost me so much money to do it. I'm not doing it. I love my Radio Link. It does absolutely everything that I want it to do. And I've never been in a situation where it's like, oh, I wish it did that. I've never been in that situation. And it's like a $110 controller, the one I use. And actually, the AT9S is a little bit better than ours.
Just a
But the AT10 isn't. I was going to get one. It's orange and it's cool. And Ian and I, Blackhawk and I both wanted to get them. And after reading the reviews, I think we've already got the best one. So, be that as it may. But Tyrannus, I believe, is also S-Bus. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it is. So S-Bus is going to go from the bottom up on the right side. So, let me tin that up. Bottom up, second.
And that was actually something nice, especially meeting you when I was really first getting into the racer style. Obviously, I've been doing a little bit with photography and stuff like that for a little while, but getting into the racers, it was really a whole new ball game, especially building from the ground up. And meeting you, it was a really great thing because you're not one to be swayed by the icon. You don't get oohed and awed by the Nike swoosh.
No.
You don't have to have that on there to know what's good and what's bad.
Right.
And that was one real nice thing, especially with meeting you, was you could tell me what's going to work. And
Yeah.
not just what's going to work, but what's going to work well and reliably.
And why does it work?
And why does it work?
Right.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And I don't know if that's, my mom used to call me a rebel, and I really don't think that's what it is. I just don't care. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, guitars. If any of you out there are music people, you'll understand this. I do not like Gibson, and I do not like Marshall, and which has kicked me out of some pretty big music circles in the world. I love Ibanez and Parker guitars and Line 6 amps. And, Gibson fucking guitars haven't changed since the 40s. Marshall amps haven't changed since the 60s. I want shit that's high-tech and fucking works. And it's the same thing. Here's how I look at everything in life. This is good math, kids. If I am sitting next to, I'm a robotic engineer. If I'm sitting next to one of the most brilliant weld engineers in the country, and this has happened to me before, and I know more than him, he's not that fucking smart. That's how I look at it. Literally, I'm sorry. It's not that I'm brilliant. It has nothing to do with ego. It's like, I didn't go to welding school, even though I'm a robotic welding application engineer. But if I know more than you, you ain't that great. I'm sorry. That's just how it is. And I think everybody should just take everything with a grain of salt. If you think, like, okay, here's an example. Your buddy sees this chick walking through the bar. It's like, oh my God, dude, check her out. And this has happened to me 1,000 times. Because I would much rather look at a machine than most anything else. And I look up and I'm like, oh, dude, really? Seriously? That shit's shelf life has expired. That's just, damn, you know? Not even with your dick. Not even with your mother's dick would I do that, you know? That's me. Take everything with a grain of salt. The smartest people in the world listen to those with experience, but they also know when to stop. So if you get stuck or you need advice, then ask people like me or ask people like Blackhawk or ask people that have done it before. And that's what makes you smart. It's not the fact that you're trying to be a cock star and I know fucking everything. Speaking of cock stars, and I know I'm getting off track, Joshua Bardwell, I didn't know this. He has a website called FPV Know-It-All.
Really?
Really?
I did not know that.
Really?
Yeah, I need to look into this.
Oh my God, dude. Seriously? How much did you get beat up in high school that you had to title it that? Okay, anyway, I'm getting sidetracked again.
I'm going to look into this. Okay.
I'm telling you, I swear to fucking God, I didn't know this. And all these guys watch this video are like, dude, you didn't know that? Like, really? And I'm like, yeah, really. I didn't go to prom, you know? Okay, so there we go. We've got our receiver put in. This is a temporary install. When I send this out to Zebruh FPV, I'm going to put in a real connector with that he can just plug in his receiver to. So what's next?
All right, next we're going to be looking at VTX.
VTX, which stands for what?
That would be our video. Yeah, hey, see,
that's
there's
right.
Sailors.
Sailor Jerry's, baby, sponsored by.
All right, that would be our video transmitter.
Yes, VTX.
That
Bam.
beautiful little guy.
Little Chinese. Yeah, we don't need that. Okay, these little rubber ducky antennas, unless you're giving a prostate exam to your dog. All right, don't need that shit. Okay, now. I think maybe Blackhawk should do this part.
Wait, you want to see me burn something?
You burn this up, I'm going to kick in your ass.
All right.
All right. So, here we go.
Have they switched from, remember the first batch of those that we got had a little different connector on the end. Have they switched from that connector?
Looks the same to me.
Oh,
Little
yeah.
Molex thingy. Now, basically what we've got, trusty pointers. I've got a bunch of trusty pointers because I can't trust any of them. You've got, this is pearls, baby. Positive, negative, and signal. The black and white you do not need unless...
That is what you're going to use your audio for.
Very good. So what I do to remove these, you can just cut them off. I pry these little bits up.
Which I actually like that a lot better than cutting, because cutting always leaves the option to shorts.
Very, very good. Now, we do not need it this long. Unless you're tying your old lady up, you don't need it that long. So, we're going to say, I'm thinking my VTX is going to go somewhere up meow.
Okay.
To quote Cartman.
No.
So, we're going to go, yeah, give yourself enough. Again, it's kind of like the ESCs. You don't want to, too short, you know, they end up a Bardwell, and it's like, you know, you don't want a short stubby.
Never.
You want a nice, you know, hey, baby.
She really doesn't want a short stubby.
It might be short, but it's thin. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and solder this up.
Now that's that ugly, waxy insulation on there, correct?
Yes, and if there had to be a drawback to these cheap VTXs, the VTX themselves is very, very nice. Are very, very nice, sorry. And this one is a switchable, and we'll go through that in a minute. But the wires are a bag of ass. If you guys have ever used run cam type of stuff, they come with a nice silicone, just like these. Real nice, ooh, you know, feel it, you know, it's like bam. These are a bag of ass. They're a polymer that has a very low threshold for heat. As soon as you solder them, bam, it goes back. So sometimes you have to cut them. But you know what? It's 12 bucks. You don't worry about it. So, what we need to do, what would you do?
What would I do?
What would you do? We're going
in trouble.
We're going to solder this into the voltage battery. And what that is, a lot of people make this mistake. They see VBAT and they're like, oh, what is that? Your VTXs can usually go up to like 24 volts or something like that. And that's usually what I wire into. So we're going to go positive into our DYS, positive over here. And our ground's going to be right.
Now, would you recommend going off of the terminals as you are, or would you recommend going off of the plug, the actual XT60, where it powers into the board?
I would go off the terminals in most cases. Most boards will have a filter for the terminals, whereas if you go straight off the battery power, you could get noise, and you might want to use a low-pass filter.
Absolutely.
Which isn't the end of the world, but it's, you know, that much more weight. So we've got our hot and we got our cold wired up. Let's see, where does our signal go? Yeah, we'll work on that in a minute. So, what would be the next step? We're going to go to our camera. We're going to need 5 volts. There's our that and that. Bada bang. Ah, my other Fox ear did not come with the programming pendant. I should write them a letter. Oh well.
Interesting.
I'm not my mother. My mother writes letters, I don't. Okay. So.
Now that looks pretty comparable to the 90 degree that you and I used, the generic. The 90 degree field of view, the camera.
Is it 90 degree?
Yes.
Yeah. This is the 700 TVL Fox ear.
Okay.
And some little Chinese guy said, it passed. Yeah. And this is the NTSC. So what is the difference between NTSC and PAL?
Biggest difference between those is European versus American, kind of, in a sense. It's going to be overseas versus stateside. Biggest difference is going to be the actual video range that you see. Mm-hmm. The NTSC is going to allow a smaller range versus the PAL, which is a larger, it's a more total picture, so to speak.